So this will probably run like 40 minutes, I'm thinking. And the reason for the talk is to give a report for the IPD committee of money that I took from the school to run down to Costa Rica and look for monarch butterflies. So the first part will be the boring part. I'm just going to talk about the results of the monarch exploration down there. The whole idea was to find monarchs that we thought might be migratory in Costa Rica. The monarch butterfly down there is the same species as the one up here. The one up here, though, flies to Mexico, as you probably know, in the fall, and then starts to fly back in the spring, and then there's leapfrogging generations from the spring to get back to Michigan. But the same species exist in Costa Rica and southern Mexico, and there's a few subspecies through Central America and South America, but this one in Costa Rica is exactly the same. So the question is, why doesn't this thing migrate? So I put a map up here of Costa Rica, and I want to say bienvenidos a Costa Rica, for those of you not from Costa Rica. Is that good enough? Y Panama. And I want to show you where we fly into. You can fly directly to Liberia right now for like $450 round trip. So it's really cheap and it's a great flight. And we're right up here. Let's see, Liberia is right here. Great airport, brand new. And our job was to look for these coastal monarchs up and down here. So what we basically did is we zigzagged through this coastal range of mountains all the way through down here to Puerto Quepos and Dominical and down to the Osa Peninsula, which is unbelievably beautiful and pristine. And then we come back here a little bit down to the border of Panama, up through the Talamanca Mountains. This is La Amistad, it means friendship, you know, between the two countries. So this is Costa Rica over here. Over here, this is Costa Rica, and this is Panama. And then we went over here to Puerto Viejo, which is kind of an eclectic town of crazy people from around the world, kind of like, Key West was like 30, 40 years ago. And then finally, we went down to Bocas del Toro down here, looking for monarchs, and came back up here. This is separate occasions, up through the mountains over here on the northern side, and then up through San Jose and up to the volcanic areas up here, to Lake Arenal and the volcano up here, and then finally back to Liberia. So we basically circumscribed the entire area here. And as I discuss these things, there's just a few parks that you have to know the names of. So La Amistad is one over here. That's virtually unexplored, by the way. If you ever want to look at things and find new species, it's a great place. They don't even have names for waterfalls, as you'll see. So here's what we found out. The monarchs do migrate, but they migrate kind of north and south between the mountain chains in the southern slopes there of the Pacific Ocean. So Dan Jansen, who lives in this house. Is that an amazing place? This guy is a world-renowned ecologist. He has every award possible from all societies. And we were lucky enough to get into his house. There was a section of it that was burnt out and had bats in it. There's another section where there's wasp nests. These vespid wasps are grown in there, replicating. There's all sorts of animals in there. And there are bags. These are bags of dead things. So these are birds sticking through here. There's mammal skulls. Over here where the kitchen is, there's this all kinds of stuff. There's books piled up here. There's books over here. There's books in the bedroom. You cannot get through this. This does not do it justice. This is a total chaotic place to be. But it's really cool because this guy does miracles. What he did was he united the entire area of northern Costa Rica into what they call the Área de Conservación de Guanacaste. It's called the ACG. And he was the first to put this entire dry forest, tropical dry forest together. It's the rarest form of forest in Central and South America. And he put it all together through his own efforts and through people here in Grand Rapids like the Wege Foundation, who gave him most of the money for it. But so he's pretty well known in Grand Rapids. He also went to the University of Kansas where I went, so we knew each other pretty well from back then. But here I am, I'm sitting here with my necklace on. Somebody pointed out I didn't wear my necklace today, but there it is. So you guys should be happy. I don't look like Dan Jansen. He's a little cooler looking than I am. But I don't know, sitting there you have to think, could I ever study here? And being ADD, I think, no, I could not. I would be looking at all these bags all over the place and just wouldn't make it. But he has done miracles down. He has resurrected these 3 parks and made an amalgam out of them and put them all together. So we took the students or former students up to what we call the Blue River. It's up in the mountains, it's about 5,000 feet. This is a volcanic area. This is one of the rivers. Wes Beaver, one of the other people that went with us from Grand Rapids Community College, was swimming in this river. This was at flood stage, so we weren't too happy about that, but he did. This is Brandy, she's here today. Max is not here, but they're both wondering, what the hell am I doing here, right? We found monarchs up in the hills here, but they were not migratory. They were just like our summer species. Now, we were there in July, is that correct? Yeah, July. So we were there all July, and we found quite a few monarchs, but they were not the migratory forms. In other words, they weren't flying directionally across the lake or across the ocean, something like that. They were just kind of fluttering around. So, this is my little trip. This is Brian, when he was much younger and not so hirsute. This is one of these huge oak trees in the mountains that are just to the southwest, I think, of the big cities down there. It's in the mountainous range there. And look, here is the exit right there. Here's Brian. This is Brian. Here's the exit. Look at the size of this oak tree. It's enormous. You could put a family in there. These trees go up to 100, 110 feet, and they are the home of these quetzal birds. The quetzal is a beautiful, it's a trogon, and here's the embra, the female up here, kind of chubby because it was cold. Now when Brian and I were there, it was really cold, if you remember. And we went to this little house there, and we were cold all night long. We couldn't figure out what was wrong. We had blankets on us, the heaters were blasting away, and the guy said, here, just turn the heater on, you'll be warm. That didn't happen. So we got up in the morning, I'm just frozen, I had no sleep. And I look out the window, and the window's open. So obviously it was gonna be cold. It's like 45, 50 out there. But these forests are just unbelievably beautiful up here. These embras and their machos, they feed on these wild avocados. So what they do is they fly down and they pick one of the fruits off, and then they fly back up to their perch and they eat the fruit around it, and they discard the seed, which apparently is poisonous to them. So they eat these all day long. Sometimes they eat frogs or whatever, but the male has these incredible 3-foot-long feathers, tail feathers that grows during the mating season, and the Mesoamericans used to use them for headdresses, that kind of thing. But they're beautiful birds. They're incredible birds. They're just unbelievably colored. This is how we started out the day. Now, this is, I want to say, this is beer. See this? This is beer. I thought it was Old Milwaukee, but I'm not sure. No? I thought it was an American beer. This is like 6:30 in the morning. He's taking us through his house. And you know, you can't line up these guides. The people over here always say, well, what are the guides? How much are you going to pay them? I said, I have no idea with the guides. Or you just go there and you kind of hook them. Hey, you want to guide us through the rainforest, whatever. So these guys were wonderful. And this guy was crazy. Remember all those black flies we had out there? Oh my God. And I had my face net and you didn't. So, so we went to these crazy, crazy areas here. This is a farm on the edge of the montane forest of Costa Rica. It's very close to the border of Panama. These are strangler figs. You see the size of these things? They can be 120, 130 feet around. And how this happens is that the seed is laid by birds in the top of a host tree, and they send down these tendrils 15 feet a year. They grow from the detritus in the treetops, and they finally make these roots. And if you look at these roots, they look like a mesh, don't they? It forms a meshwork. When the roots meet, they actually physically join, and they make these huge rootstocks, and they support this tree, and finally they grow in and they strangle the host. At first, though, they're just commensal. They're just living off the tree like every other epiphyte. But now, here's Brian thinking, how big is this thing, and how do I measure it? But they would grow, you know, butt to butt, basically. They're all over the place, and they are huge, huge trees. And fig trees, by the way, are supportive of so much life in these areas. Here's how we got transported around. This thing, I just want to point a few things out here. This is the plastic bag and the gasoline tank to prevent gasoline from dripping out. The doors didn't work on one side because I remember when we stopped to fix the tire, I think it was this tire here, we were right on the edge of this cliff that led to a river, and I thought, oh my God, you know. I did amaze this guy though, because I caught a butterfly in the air as we were traveling. I reached out and I grabbed this butterfly. It was a heliconius butterfly. I thought, oh my God, he said. Then I said a word in Spanish which meant something totally different than what I thought it meant. And he looked at me like this, and I said, I don't think I meant that. But he said, no, it's a very bad word. Very bad word. But when you get up into the mountains, these are the pools you find everywhere. They're beautiful, and you just wish you could stay there in a little pup tent all by yourself. But you can't because there's jaguars there and whatever else. Cougars. Here's Brian. He's going to take a dip in one of the rivers. I forgot the name of that river. But that water is obviously mountain water, and it's really cold, and it's very clean, but there's waterfalls here, and this is a pounding waterfall. So your feet, even though I told him to wear shoes, get really cold and numb, and numb feet don't grab the rocks very well. But all over here, there are monarchs just down the slope from this particular area here. As you go up, there aren't any at all. The milkweed either falls out, that's what they feed on, or other things. Okay, here's a quiz. What's this? Where is it? What is it? Where's the frog? Tell me when to stop.
Right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
You can see it pretty well? Yep. Kind of camouflage though, right? Would you admit? Okay, fine. What's this? Where? This? This? Katydid? You see these holes in the wings? They're not holes at all. These are just discoloration marks. When you find these on branches, you can't see them, but it's out of its element here, ready for somebody to jump on top of it. Okay, what's here? I wanted to make a calendar of all the things that were invisible and say, find me, This would be July. So where is it? You want to go this systematically? Like, tell me when to stop. There? Nobody sees it? Jake? Did you see it?
Right there.
Where?
On the left by that little tiny green leaf. Right there.
Here?
Up. Right there.
No.
That's a frog?
That's a dead leaf.
No, up.
Here?
Yep.
No, that's a piece of wood. How about right here? See the leg, the back hind legs of the frog? Is that pretty good? Okay, well, you guys get a C minus because you missed two. I mean, you got two right. That's a 66 C minus. This is an unnamed waterfall. Brian and I went to this. And this is on the Talamanca range. Remember that one area said La Amistad Park that connected Costa Rica and Panama? This is an unbelievable cliff. It went up like 300 feet, I think. It was huge. And this water's pounding down. There's no name for this waterfall. That's why I said this whole place is unexplored. So you guys should get out there. But there's tree ferns here, and it started to rain, and they had given us sandwiches. They were huge sandwiches with banana leaves wrapped around them. And when I went back to the research station down the mountain, I thanked the lady for the sandwich. I said, that was huge, but it was so hard to eat because it was this big, I swear to God. Remember that? It was wrapped in banana leaves, and she said, oh, Mateo. She said, that was 3 sandwiches. I said, oh, I had no idea that you were supposed to take them apart. I thought it was just like a Big Mac. It was huge. And so, yeah, everyone gets a kick out of me sooner or later. These are white-faced capuchins. These guys here are very smart. They can be kind of mean and angry at times. They can throw things at you. But they use them in the trade sometimes for paraplegics. And they also use them, of course, for organ grinder, monkeys to get money. But these are pretty common. They're locally common. You can find them in a lot of different kinds of forests there. But when they're angry, you ditch them quickly. This is Brian's favorite basilisk. It's named after a mythological king, I think. Basilisk is what it means. But here they are here, and they've got these crazy feet here. See these here? I think this is a common basilisk. And they call these the Jesus Christ lizards. So they're called Jesus Christ because they walk in the water. If they're disturbed, they will run so fast and so quickly over the water that these feet have kind of loose scales on the side, and they splay out and they push back. They've got trapped an air bubble underneath, And so there's a cushion that doesn't break the tension of the water. So they push back like this, the stroke, and then they whip them out before they can sink, and they do it again. But they can only go like 30, 40 feet when they're big like this before they start sinking. So then they swim the rest of the way. But you can imagine predators trying to escape these things or trying to get these things. Probably doesn't work very well. These are ficus roots again, the strangler figs. Here is the host tree over here dying. And see how big these trunks get? Look at that. These buttress things hold them up in the wind, so they don't really need huge trunks there, but they form a pseudo huge trunk because of all the tendrils that have formed from the roots. This is the Osa Peninsula, and this is south of Drake's Bay. This is totally wild. This is one of the wildest, most endemic places in the entire world. I would suggest you go there before something happens to it, but they've got great waves. Surfers come here once in a while, but other than that, there's nobody here. These are almond trees here, almendes, and these serve as the fruits for the macaw, scarlet macaws that are coming up. Here's the scarlet macaw. It's a parrot, really, and they're beautiful, and they're rare in many places, but we would see them 24, 30 in a flock, and they would be everywhere. They're eating these almonds. The harpy eagle is, I think, near extinction there, so they used to feed on these, so they're exploding. They have 2,000 birds there in that little park there. And you can be a hippie. You can stay on the beach. Nobody cares. There's no rent. There's no fee. You just have to clean up. Yeah, see, you can go there. You get that $450 ticket. You go there and bring your pup tent. Nobody bothers you. There's nobody on the beach. This is a fungus. It actually looks like a phallic symbol, so the phallus is what they call this. But it's got this indusium here, this crazy lacy thing around it, and right here is a sporulating mass, and it's sticky, and the spore's in there, and it smells like dead bodies. So when these pop up, we have relatives of these here. They grow in wood chips sometimes, but we have relatives here that don't smell quite as bad. They do stink. So these are stinkhorn fungus mushrooms, and they have the sticky mass, and the flies come in, Drosophila, you know, those red-eyed fruit flies, and certain kinds of wasps and stingless bees come in here, and they take this stuff, it sticks to them, and the spores go everywhere they want. That's what the beach looks like. Now, is that nice? This is volcanic sand. The waves pound there. You can't hear anybody for miles and miles and miles. So it's totally desolate, and the undertow there is pretty great, too. On the way to Panama, you have to cross this bridge, and they ask for your ticket. And you say, what ticket? You say your airplane ticket, because they want to make sure you go back. You say, well, I don't have a ticket. We just get it online, right? I don't want a ticket. So then you got to explain to them, I don't have a ticket because, you know, la, la, la. Anyway, you finally get through. They let you go. They're not excited about their jobs at the border. You know, they're on cell phones talking. This is not a serious job, right? But here we go. This is the bridge you got to cross, and it's a footbridge. This is the international bridge, and here's what it looks like when you get close. You can lose babies here. You can lose your dogs. You can, you know, lose your parents, whatever. There's holes all over the place. So I was going to write them a letter, tell them to fix that, but nothing happened. But anyway, it's a really cool country down in Panama. You take these boats through the estuaries. They go on for miles, and you finally reach Bocas del Toro. And in Bocas del Toro, we saw, well, not on your trip, but on others, we saw these pygmy sloths that are incredibly rare. There's like 76 left in the world. We saw one like from you guys to me. And let's see here. This was a visitor once at Puerto Viejo. We went back to Costa Rica across that same bridge. And you can see how big it is. You are amazed that these things can fly, but what they've got is they've got wings under this heavy duty part. This is a wing cover, really. It's really a modified wing. And underneath that are these membranous wings that pop out like, I don't know, they just pop out. They have a hinge and they pop out, but they're terrible flyers. So, in summary of the Costa Rica-Panama trip, we did find monarchs. They were not migratory. And as Dan Jansen pointed out, he thought that the migratory response probably was the same kind of response from mountains to ocean that we have here, because it goes kind of in the same direction. And monarchs that are imported, you know, 100 years ago to Australia do exactly the same thing. They fly north and south, but in the different direction of it because they're on the opposite side of the world. So I'm thinking that's what it is. It's built in. We don't know for sure, but it's fun to speculate. Now, we are going to go to another part of the world. Robert's been here a couple times, right? So I just, as a brief introduction, this was not part of the IPD grant, but I wanted to show you some pictures to show you what the tropics looks like down there. It's quite different. where they have extensive rainforest and montane forest up in Costa Rica and Panama. They don't really have that. It's more disjunct and broken up. So this is what we call the Western Arc. This is a whole rift system that's splitting apart in the middle here. It's actually the continents separated. So these are the Eastern Arc Mountains here from Kilimanjaro, and they go through the Usambaras. You remember that one right there? That's right by Kenya. They had all the trouble up here, by the way, not too far north of us, like 150 miles. This is Zanzibar, which is already broken apart from the continent. Pemba and Mafia Islands, those are all broken apart already. But down here are some other national parks. This is Selous, huge game area that nobody ever goes to. It's the wildest one. And Ruaha down here, and the Udzungwa Mountains over here. These are all arcs of islands that are terrestrial. So they're high volcanic islands that kind of jut up from the steppe, you know. And everything in between here is steppe, high, like high prairie over here. These lakes are some of the deepest in the world, like Lake Tanganyika. Goes down 5,000 feet. It's almost a mile deep. It's because that's where the rift is happening there. The rift is taking place. This one is not apparently on the rift, but it's formed in a slightly different way. But anyway, the rift goes all the way up here to the northern part of Africa and down here. So all this is splitting away in waves, they think. And what we did, we visited first Zanzibar from Dar es Salaam. And here's Dar es Salaam right here. That is the biggest city there. It's not the capital, but it's the craziest city I've ever been to. I mean, to get around that town, you could be stuck in traffic for 2 hours with, you know, fumes from diesel right in your face, and you just wilt. And you think, how do these people put up with that? But they do, every day, going there and coming back. They leave at 4 in the morning to get to work. And then they leave at 8 o'clock at night to get home. But they're all kind of just wonderful people. They're just kind of calm and collected, and they don't get too excited about anything. So I would have a hard time living there, because I would go, oh my God, if it's 5 minutes on the expressway, I'm having a panic attack, you know? Anyway, we flew down here to Dar es Salaam after we went to Ethiopia. And right there along the Indian Ocean, we took this ferry over to Zanzibar. And then we rented a car from a friend of my son, John, who was at the University of Chicago 10 years ago and stayed in Tanzania for 7 months, and that was like 10 years ago. So we went from here, we rented a car from his friend, a professor friend. We went down here towards Mikumi, and then across here through the Selous game area, the Udzungwa, over here, Ruaha National Park, and then cut up here through Iringa, up to Dodoma, which is the functional capital, and then up through these Great Salt Lakes, and finally around here, Tarangire, and Lake Manyara, Ngorongoro, and you know, this part of the Serengeti up here, and what am I missing? We didn't go actually to Kilimanjaro, that's a whole week really, but Mount Meru was over here, and then finally we went over to the Usambara. So we did another circle like this, okay? Now this is the circle everybody goes to right here. They go to the Serengeti Ngorongoro crater and Lake Manyara, which is right down here. It's a kind of an alkaline lake. And so we wanted to avoid what we call affectionately the gringo crowd. So we went where very few people go, and we have the tickets, the speeding tickets to prove it, because the speed limit is 35 miles an hour on the highway, and then they have these signs in kilometers that'll say 50 with a slash through it, so we could not figure out what that meant. That meant you could go faster, but you could only go faster for a couple miles, and then it was back to 35 miles an hour. So my son got 2 speeding tickets in like 10 minutes, and he spoke fluent Swahili, so he could not get out of there. And then the guy asked him for some money for breakfast. So, you know, you gotta smile, right? But the other thing is our car broke down right here. As soon as we got to Dar es Salaam, the tire blew apart, and we're sitting there going, what are we gonna do? It's 4:30 in the morning, it's not quite dawn. Out comes this guy, this wonderful guy with a toothbrush in his mouth. He was looking at the car, he didn't say anything. He just fixes the tire for us. So, I mean, they're the most wonderful people on the planet. I can't say that for the administration, but the people, the regular people there, you know, there's no problem. Anyway, I'm going to show you some highlights of this, okay? So just remember the big circle. This is Fokas' elementary school. He's not in the picture here, but this is Jesse, Melena, my son John, Stephen, I forgot his name, and Sarah. We all went in this car, 6 of us in this car, and it was the craziest trip. Our car broke down on Lake Manyara, finally. This is a picture in Zanzibar, and this is Melena back here, and these guys were having a great time with us. But they catch these fish, and they cut them up, and they skin them right there alive. And so they make the fillets and they throw them in the bilge down here, and the fish are still swimming away, but of course there's no skin or scales left. They're just done. And it's for the tourist trade primarily. So that was kind of wonderful. This is the Indian Ocean here. You guys know what this is? I put multiple there because what they do is they tie them together. So each one of these is like a head. And some of you members of my zoology class should recognize this. But here's what they do. To tenderize them, they put these guys on the beach and they beat them with clubs. They pulverize these poor things. But I also noticed that there were these things that looked like sea cucumbers on the beach. So I was wondering, what the heck are those sea cucumbers? Turned out those were not sea cucumbers. Those were little kids who had defecated on the beach earlier. So every morning there was these sea cucumbers all over the beach. The high tide would roll in and take the sea cucumbers out. It was just very innocent, and I figured, well, what the hell? There's probably a lot of fish that eat that kind of stuff. So anyway, these were sold in restaurants, I'm sure, to some, Gringolandia restaurant, and I'm sure they thought, man, these are fresh caught. If they only knew how they're prepared on the beach with all the sand and everything, they might have second thoughts. Here's a young man with a shark. They sell those there too. I played soccer with some of these guys after I had a beer, and I could not move. So they took video of me playing soccer, and they said, did you know that you just kicked the ball as far as you could to get them away from the little kids? I said, yes, that was my strategy, because they were so good. I couldn't keep up with them after that beer, and so this is one of the kids here. They would follow me all over the place. Here's the same group over here. They're handling their catch over here, so they strip them. What do they got to do? And it's a beautiful ocean there. You can go out snorkeling, skin diving, whatever. These are Dhows. They've taken down the sails here. They go out every morning. I got a picture of those. See that? It's really kind of fairy tale-like stuff. These are fairly small boats. If storms come up on the ocean, you're kind of done, I would think. But they hang on. They walk all over these things. They're just unbelievable fisher people. So here's a picture from Selous, that big game area I showed you. These are just impala on the roadside. I tried to be fair to vertebrates, even though I'm a butterfly guy. I stuck in a few just so you guys would be happy. But there's herds of these gazelles. They're all gazelles, Thompson gazelles, impalas, those are all the same. They look the same to me. Just like people say moths look like butterflies, I say vertebrates are all the same too. Anyway, there's elephants back here. There's giraffes in the background. They're just everywhere. And you can imagine that North America used to look like this. I mean, seriously, 10,000, 12,000 years ago, it was like this. This is a black and white Colobus monkey, really pretty. We have some at the John Ball Zoo here. Very busy eating fruits. They are great seed dispersers. They're in secondary forest and primary forest. This is in the Udzungwas. This is me in Udzungwa Mountain Waterfall. I was sick that day, so everyone left me. They didn't care. They said we're leaving. So I stayed there. And so I was so happy because they had a terrible time with their guide. And I met this guy, David, and he took me around literally by hand and showed me all this cool stuff. And he talked about his kids and everything. I had a great time. I came back, I said, God, I just had a great hike, because I left later in the day since I was sick. And they said, we had a terrible time. And I said, oh, you should have stayed with me then. So I went swimming in this vernal, it's not a vernal pool, but it was a pool down there. It was fantastic. So I got video, but I'm not going to show it to you. These are baobabs. This is one of my favorite trees, I think, of all time. This is, I forgot this one. Is it digitata, I think, is a species here. But these are huge. Here's me. Pretty big guy myself, right? Look at the circumference of these trees. They are enormous. These are like upside down trees. We're in the dry season, the big dry season in July there. And they have then a rainy season, a small one. Then they have another little dry, and then they have a big rainy season. So they have like 4 mini seasons mixed up, but no true winter. We're about 5 degrees south of the equator at this point. And I love these things. These are one of the few trees that you can strip the bark off of. Elephants strip up, I mean, really high. They'll strip it up right here. And they can regenerate the bark. So if you're taking botany, ask Pam how they do that. I think that would be a good thing to do. Here's Ruaha. That's on the far western side of where we were. These are all chains of mountains. Most of these are volcanic, as you can see by the shapes here. And this is all dry land here, acacia mostly. Elephants love this stuff. Giraffes love this stuff. So here it is at night. It's really beautiful. And there's nothing but wild animal noises all around you. And this is not in a Gringolandia thing. There was virtually 2 cars in an entire park, which is huge. And we were there for the entire day. Here's our first live animal we saw there. It was a dead elephant. And you know, hyenas were over here and other animals were picking away at it already, but you can see how they blow it up, you know, from the bacteria in their intestines and everything. And obviously they feed a lot of different animals, so I put in there brings life to everything there. Here's a little family of elephants, you know. But Ruaha has one of the biggest herds of elephants in the entire East African rift system. Many families make a herd. They were all over the place. You couldn't get too close because obviously they're still wild animals and they're not used to seeing people. There aren't many cars that actually go there. Here's a giraffe. Yeah, skull and the cervical vertebra. They're foot long. These guys are huge. And the giraffes are kind of dark. They're not like your stereotypical patterned giraffes. But God, they're awesome animals. They would stand there and look at you. They would just do like this. There might be 12, 13, 14. And you don't see them all. Even though they're 18, 20 feet high, you're looking there, you see 2 or 3, and they go, oh, there's 2 over there, oh, there's more over here. They're so camouflaged against this dry background. And they just look at you. And they have these really long eyelashes, you know. And then once in a while they'll move and they'll grab an acacia or whatever. They were pretty cool for vertebrates, you know. This is how I feel some days. Robert, you too? Kind of like this, old man Baobab. This thing is huge. The unfortunate part about these trees is that sometimes poachers live in here, you know, at night because it's a pretty safe place from other wild animals that might eat them. But this is what happens when you're maybe 1,200 years old as a baobab. These guys are huge. And they're just the most impressive tree. I think that even beats the redwoods, you know. I know the redwoods are tall and huge too, but these guys just look kind of massive, you know, big shoulder trees. Zebra everywhere. There are vertebrates everywhere. You will not be disappointed going to any park there. Any national park, you will see these guys everywhere. And sometimes hundreds of them. And sometimes you see them like this too. These are cubs that are eating a zebra. Look at this. I don't know if you can see it real well, but this thing is blood from this point over to his face. He is covered in zebra blood because when we came up, he's inside the carcass. Inside the carcass, here's one of the moms over here. There's 3 lionesses back in the bush here. And this guy would get us really close. We had to have a guide to get in this park. So we would get really close, like 10 feet away. And I'm thinking, you know, you're kind of backing up in your seat in the car because it's open. And you think, I hope these guys are well fed. I hope they're satiated because I really don't want a lioness down my throat here. But they would start to move and I think, oh my God. Butterflies never do that. You never have to be afraid of butterflies. So there were a number of cubs there and they were just growling away. They could care less about us. Greater kudu, these were pretty common. They're not a very common animal, but they've got great horns. And hippopotamus, these guys would just lie around, you know. Angry animals all the time. You cannot get close to hippos. And don't think they're that cute because they will kill you. So yeah, there were a number of those in the Ruaha riverbed there. But this, getting to the invertebrate part, these are one of my favorite spiders. These are the spider groups that they gave LSD to in the 60s to figure out what they would do. And of course, they spun little webs, not like this. See how beautiful this is, the orb weavers? Well, they would spin a little web down here in the corner and call it a day because all the neurotransmitters were disrupted. But this is a big female, and this sexual dimorphism is being investigated by one of our students here, Melena. And there's little males, you know, that are about 1/10 the size here. So we don't know if they're dwarfs or these guys are, you know, giants. We don't know which way it goes. But you see this web here, how it goes round and round and round. There are sticky lines that go through here, and there's some tension lines where they can feel the prey when they come vibrate the web. But they construct these in like 5 minutes. So they'll tear them down, and then they'll construct them again. If fishing isn't good, they'll go somewhere else. But I love them. And they also found a really old fossil, I want to say 320 million years, of the first orb-weaving spider from China. A lot of those in China now. So we have one here called it's Nepheloclavipes, and we have another one, Argiopia aurantia. When people first see it, they think they're from outer space, but we have the same kind of spider. This is a blue Sykes monkey, as far as I can tell. This is what they crawl through. Look at the thorns on these acacia. Can you imagine that? Their pads are tough, you know, and there's troops of these. Those and baboons. I didn't even put up baboons because you've seen them. They open your car door. If it's not locked, it's got to be locked because they know how to open car doors. Different models. They know, seriously, that's the biggest thing. The first thing, and there's always somebody who's left the car door unlocked, and the first thing they say is go lock that door because they're already at the doors. You think, oh, they're going to chew my pant legs off or something if I tell them to stay away. So I tried to avoid them. Elephants push over acacias like they're nothing. A 20-foot, 30-foot tall acacia, they just roll it over and then eat the leaves because it's the easy way to do it. And these elephants here in Ruaha were huge with enormous tusks. The only place that they were bigger was Lake Manyara. These are giraffes. Here's the look that they have. How many giraffes are there? It says 5. Can you guys see 5? Yeah? Yeah? And this is the kind of lion that we have at the John Ball Zoo. This one was right over our car, and I kept telling John, I said, because we didn't have a guide at this part, I said, John, I think we can go a little farther, you know? But it's right over us. He said, no, we got to get a picture of his gut. And here's her gut, rather. Look at the gut. So look at this look. Have you seen every kitty looks like this? Right? They even got those little hands sticking out there, right? That's a cat, right? These are not the ones you want to pet. Our car broke down shortly after this. They always tell you not to get out of the car. So we had to push it. But luckily, these wonderful people came along and pulled us out of the riverbed. So we were pretty happy with that. This is Lake Manyara. This is an alkaline lake. This is very much like Lake Michigan, not nearly as big. I think it's like 80 square miles. But these are the escarpment mountains. See them right here? They go, 1,000 feet maybe. And over here is the actual lake. It's not sandy like our lake. This is the ancient lake. These are very old lakes. And this is lunch, snack for paired butterflies. John and I were looking at this last night. And we think it's either kudu or could be, he said, an elephant on a bad day because it was pretty small. Elephants have these round turds like this with a lot of straw going through them. So I have a lot of what I call poop shots of all the different feces that I saw during the trip. I didn't want to bore you guys with those, but I just want you to know that not all butterflies are pretty things. Sometimes they like pretty raunchy things. And these are all males. They get their salts out of these turd balls, if you want to say that. And then they take those and they sequester other things in their body to make their spermatophores. These are huge termite mounds, and they're broad. They're as big as a truck. And there are gazillions of termites that live in there. And they're virtually impermeable to most animals, but they're all over the place. These are flamingos, Lake Manyara. You see, you can't see across. There's a lot of people who live in the East Coast here in this country who think you can look across Lake Michigan, right? Can you see Chicago? And you say, no, Earth curves, You can't see across these lakes either. This is one of the smallest ones. The biggest ones like Lake Tanganyika, are impossible. Here is Chui. This is the leopard in Swahili of Lake Manyara. Our car broke down finally right here too. Thankfully, this one was fed, obviously, because you can tell by the legs over here and the tail's all relaxed. And that's where it died permanently. So luckily, another kind gentleman came by. He was on his way out after work, and he put us all in his car. This open truck, we're bouncing around, but he got us out of there. And we had to go back the next day to pick up our car, but our car died after that. So wildebeest at play. These are in these are in the Ngorongoro crater, and there's thousands of them. They're always migrating. Here you go. There's hippopotamus in the dry season. These pools are the only thing that's left. And there's once in a while there's a Cape buffalo there. But there's hyenas. Anything you can possibly want that you see in picture books is in these parks. Serengeti is the same, probably more and bigger herds there. And hippos, water buffalo, wildebeest. It's amazing. Everybody gets along. Lions are parading around, doesn't matter. Pregnant zebras, they scratch their bellies on these big rocks. She did that for half an hour. So I can't figure out what was going on. She's probably ready to give birth. Now, this is Fami Mamuya's father. Some of you people who have been here a while probably know Fami Mamuya. He came here to GRCC, and he just got his master's degree in business administration, and he got his PhD in eye physiology. So he's got the best of both worlds, right? He can keep his eye on business. I figure he knows what he's doing. But this is his father. His father rescued us in Arusha. He lives in Arusha, which is where the big national parks are. And he looks a lot like him right now. So this is Mount Meru in the background here. Kilimanjaro is further up. It's the tallest mountain in Africa. I think Meru is like the third. And he was the nicest man. He's Muslim, so he was celebrating Ramadan when we were there. And so he couldn't drink alcohol, but he always knew what alcohols were good. So I figured, he probably did some of that. But he's the nicest guy. He took us to parks there, open markets. He was wonderful. And he saved our lives, basically, because he got us on the right buses to go back to where we had to go. This is one of his employees. This man showed us how to harvest bananas. So this is a banana tree. He takes a long pole and he pokes it right into the pith and he rocks it back and forth in a rhythmic way, and finally it gets weak right there and all of a sudden just collapses. And then the bananas, of course, underground. And the bananas, they might weigh 100 pounds. Those things are huge. So he's got to be careful where that thing falls, but he knows exactly what he's doing and when to pull back. So he harvested those. We kind of made his day because we were really excited about that. We went to the Udzungwa. Remember the last stop at just below Kenya? And that is an unbelievable place. That is, of all the island parks that we visited, that is probably one of the best because it's montane rainforest and beautiful virgin rainforest. And these guys, these hornbills, are everywhere. They are just everywhere. They greet you in the morning on this tree called the Queen of Africa. And they're busy and they're raucous and they wake you up. We stayed at this very famous place. It's called the Amani Hill Welfare Center. And when we got there, this guy was saying, he was drunk. He was saying, welcome, welcome, And so he didn't stop. So we said, okay, thank you very much. So we went to our rooms over here. But you can see some of the tropical forest over here. This is son John. He's in Amani. This is where he stayed 10 years earlier. He met this guy called Rashidi, who was this incredible person, a naturalist, like unparalleled naturalist there. And we were looking for him. He lived around Amani, but we couldn't find him. And this is Lili and Melena. Now Melena is like 5 feet and Lili must be like 4 or 5. So there's some very small people there. But this is a German library from 1888, I think. So there's textbooks and there's medical books and natural history stuff that goes way back. I mean, the thing is priceless, but it's kind of just open. So you think, what is going on? But this is at 5,000 feet, so it's not too bad. It's a place where it will rain, and then 5 minutes later it's sunshine. So you're cold at first, and you got to take your jacket off, whatever. These are mountain streams in Amani. And Amani is a thing that's pretty broad, but this is where tons of butterflies are. These are chrysalides, chrysalises that we're looking at. These are for import mostly to Europe, but also to America. But the Meyer Garden hasn't picked up on this yet, so I gave them their name. But they're incredibly complicated and beautiful chrysalises. These are mimics of like monarch butterflies that we have here. This is in the same group, and they're very common, but you don't know what you're catching because they all look alike. You got to look at their legs and other spots. Here's a huge millipede that met its death. This thing was probably 8-10 inches long, and ants are just, huge ants are ripping it apart. This is Rashidi. I remember he came up the road and said, Babu. And I looked around because I'm the only white-haired guy there, Babu. I didn't know exactly what it meant at that point. But it turned out it means grandfather. So he says, Johnny. And I said, Johnny. Oh, Johnny, my son Johnny. I said, he's down at Amani. And he said in Swahili, he said, okay, I'll go find him. I said, how are you going to find him? I said, I took my camera out and I showed him the Amani Center sign. I said, this is where he is right there. He goes, okay, no problem. Well, he met up with him. He found him. So this is Rashidi. He's a great naturalist. These are chameleons here. This is the 2-horned chameleon, and this is the 3-horned chameleon. So they call this one the 3-horny, and this one they call the 2-horny. They put a vowel at the end of each word here. Here's a bizarre moth caterpillar. It's got flanges on it. It wazzles around. I don't know what for. That to me would draw attention to you. The invertebrates here are unknown. We went to a lecture run by a guy from Cambridge. He was talking about the vertebrates and diversity because it's one of the hotbeds. It's like the Galapagos, only better because there's more things that haven't been discovered. Well, they got the vertebrates down pretty much, but it said invertebrates, there was no information. So if you like invertebrates, this is the place to go. Here's the Queen of Africa. I had coffee every day looking at my Queen of Africa, watching the hornbills fly in, monkeys hitting here, vervet monkeys, etc. And this is Bracken Fern. One of my former students, Ricky, worked on Bracken Fern. This is the same plant in Tanzania that we found in Peru and Brazil, and also in this country here. It's still got these little spots here, these ooze out a sap that ants like, and they protect the plant. Here's another very poisonous moth here. This is the tiger moth. Our tiger moths are poisonous, but most of them don't have this. This is from a thoracic gland. You poke it a little bit, and these perfect spherical bubbles pop out. They have alkaloids in them, so if you eat this thing, it burns your throat, and it makes you throw up. And it also gives you an irregular heartbeat. So don't touch those. But here's when it looks like a polyphemus moth. I mean, I could tell this is in the genus Antheria as soon as I saw it. I thought, wow, that's amazing. And we're, you know, I don't know how many thousands of miles away we even are, but it was there. Here's the montane rainforest of Mani. You guys have a great time there. They got a great set of trails. And then finally, you know, everything comes to an end. This butterfly was near its end, but you can see all these nicks in it right there. These are all from birds. They try to get it. You see these eye spots there? They go for the eye spots. So the worst nicks are right by the eye spots. And so apparently there's some protection there. Anyway, of all the places we were in Africa, I would say that the Amani station was the most placid and easily visited and easy to walk through, and just tons of stuff to do there, and the people are great. I had kids running up and down the road, you know, chasing each other, and you know, they don't have much, really, but they always seem incredibly happy, these kids. They're not like ours. It's a little different, you know? Like, where's my Game Boy or whatever it is, you know? They don't have any of that stuff. They are happy if you give them paper and pencil. You know, it's really quite different. Anyway, that was a quick tour. I have a lot more, but I'm not going to show them to you this time. A lot of great video of elephants coming at our truck, you know. We had one juvenile elephant, small tusk, you know, you could tell it was a teenager. Was really excited because we got too close, you know. It started rearing up and everything, came at our truck, and then he backed off and he tripped over a log. And if I could capture his face, the embarrassment was like, what the hell, you know? So he just walks away like nothing happened, like a cat, you know, falls off a table. It's like, oh, you know? You didn't see that, did you? So those are beautiful spots. I can tell you it's a very safe country in Tanzania. You can go there as an individual or a small group. I don't think you have anything to fear. We had one of our students who would constantly leave her purse, her iPhone, or whatever else she had behind, and there was always some poor guy running out after her. You forgot this, you forgot this, you know? So in Swahili, they say kwaherini, because you guys are a group. It means goodbye, okay? And tafadhali, you know, thank you. Do you have any questions? Any? You guys want to go there? I can tell you how to go there now. Do not travel like we did. Do not travel in a car. That is the hard way to do it. You should go to Arusha and fly by plane to these different parks, you know. That's the way to do it. Because the roads are awful, and when they're not awful, you can only go 35. So it's like little old people driving the car, you know, it takes too long. Okay, thank you guys for coming. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Let me know. Okay.